Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another fantastic episode of Behind Them Six with your boy Ham Solo 05 Gaming here on the TSWS Gaming YouTube channel. And today, I got another fantastic guest that I'm happy to introduce you to, or maybe you already know him. The guy with all the games behind him, very honest personality. New York. What's cracking? RGT 85. Welcome to the show, brother. Thank you so much for being here. I know you're a little under the weather, but like I said earlier, I'm going to try to respect your time and whatnot, but we're going to have a good time while we're here to get together, brother. How you doing today?
Yeah, sure, man. Like you said, feeling a little under the weather, but hey, show must go on. You don't get sick days when you're in this gig, so you just make the most of your time, I guess, and just deal with it. But no, I'm doing all right. Obviously, it's just a cold. I've had a million. I'll still have a million more. So
no doubt.
But yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. Thank you so much again. Bro, we were talking just a little bit like before the show about, people and their stuff and what they got, and being worried about another man's property and stuff like that. And sure, as you were saying, like, you do whatever you want with your stuff. But I mean, I'm gonna react a little bit and just be like, yo. And you were saying he kind of knew what he was doing. And I kind of started to think after you said that, maybe they just did it for show to get people into it. And just to give everybody a little bit of context of what we're talking about, there was a little video that posted up on Twitter of somebody behind the counter. And that's why I'm starting to think that this was just set up in some BS. Because they were behind the counter. This person looked mighty jolly and proud to get $700 for unopened NES, an unopened 64, like with the Pikachu, the yellow one, the I forgot what it's called. It starts with like a K or something like that. And then a stack of I'm not sure if they were unopened games, but they were still in the box and everything like that. Everything looked complete and pristine. Dude got $700 and bought a Switch with it, and I'm just like, yo.
Yeah, I mean, you got to remember, 9 times out of 10, if you see some BS on social media, it's probably for show. Like, if I'm a business owner, think of it like this: if you're that business owner, and you're putting out the image that you're taking advantage of this person, is anyone going to want to do business with you? Like, no one's going to bring you any trade-ins, and that's what a retro or used game store lives and dies on the trade-ins and stuff like that. So I have a feeling that maybe in a couple days they'll come out and say something and you also have to remember, though, the internet forgets the latest thing because they always move on to the next thing to be pissed off about, because in 2 days nobody's going to know anything about this or think about this. But I wouldn't be surprised if they came out and be like, oh, it was just some BS. We're just kind of get publicity. But even on the other hand, it's like nothing has value, especially with old games, unless we give it value. Like, I could say I want, somebody could offer me $10 for this. And then I could be like, oh, yeah, cool. I want $10. And now this is worth $10. But in actuality, it sometimes sells on eBay for like $100. So, the whole perceived value, it all comes down to the person that you're dealing with. I mean, in my case with Phoenix Resale, the title of his video was buying the $40,000 collection. It was more than $40,000 of value if we went on what it's actually worth in the market right now, because of the fact that I literally stopped. I was like, dude, I'm freaking tired of inventorying stuff. I haven't even gotten to the systems yet. I just finished the games. This is the value of it. Make me an offer on this, or else I'm going to keep adding to the list and the price is going to go up. And he made me an offer that I liked, and I said, perfect, we'll do it. Like, could I have gotten more money selling all the stuff individually? Hell yeah. Could I have got more money going to conventions and selling it? Hell yeah. I didn't want to do that. I wanted convenience. This man flew in, stayed the night at my house, rented a truck. We loaded up the truck. Bye-bye. I have money in my pocket. I'm happy. He's happy. everyone wins. So, that's kind of a random rant, but that's my philosophy on it. If you're happy with what you get for selling something, or you're happy with the price you paid, don't let anyone tell you any different.
That's a fact, but don't be surprised when a bunch of people react to it as well.
Oh, of course. I mean,
if you're going to post it on the internet.
Especially if it's documented.
Yeah, you did that on purpose. So, and who's to know if this person isn't like, oh, this is like 1 of 15. Like, whatever.
Yeah, they might have had extras. It could have been just a damn employee of the store just messing around or something. Like, nobody really knows.
Facts. Absolutely. Anyways, getting on to it, brother. I need to know what's been going on with you. What have you been playing as of lately? We got several topics to hit on, you guys. So we're first off going to talk about, what he's kind of been up to. I'm going to have him shout out his stuff in case nobody's heard of him or something like that. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about his history and whatnot, some current event stuff, and then some future things, and get up out of here. But anyways, continue on. What's been going on with RGT? What have you been playing as of lately, brother?
Honestly, for modern stuff, it's just been Tears of the Kingdom. I am at what is essentially the last mission, like, go forth and spoiler alert, Ganondorf. But I'm at that mission, but I'm not going to do that yet because there's nothing really like within the next week or two that's like, I mean, I guess Street Fighter 6. But you still have a little time before that. That's like 2 weeks away.
So no Diablo.
Nah, I'm not a big Diablo guy. I played Diablo 3 and had some fun with it, but I can live with that. It's not a day one for me because I never had a PC growing up for gaming and stuff like that. And I feel like most people who love Diablo love it because of playing it on the PC when they were younger. But yeah, Tears of the Kingdom. I'm like 90 hours in on gameplay time. And then I actually have been doing a lot of light gun games because with my little emulation setup that I still need to make a video on, it's coming this weekend. Well, at least
CRT, or did you get special guns?
No, I have a Sinden light gun. So the Sinden light gun is for use on an HD TV. So I can upscale. I can upscale all these games, and it works. It works great. Like, I played Jurassic Park Arcade. I played Lethal Enforcers. I played Virtua Cop. I played House of the Dead. Just whatever I want because I have everything on my little emulation mini PC. So like that second bookshelf, which is actually the same as this bookshelf, it used to be over here, which is like when you walk into my little arcade room, there's a wall right there. So that's where I had that bookshelf. But when I got rid of most of my stuff, I had a bunch of extra room. So I was like, well, what do I want to do here? And I found this table that I've had forever that I never did anything with. And I was like, okay. So I set up the table and I was like, all right, why don't I do like, so like when I'm reviewing one of these like mini handhelds or something, it's like, well, I could do, top down shots and use this table as sort of a thing. So I bought some lights and I was like, I feel like I could do more. So I just kept adding like little pieces in, and then I got into the whole emulation thing with the mini PC, ended up throwing a TV on the wall and a sound bar and then some lights overhead. So now it's just like a dedicated emulation station. I bought another one of these cheap recliners that you get off Amazon for like $120. They're a fake leather, but straight from China, but they're excellent quality. And yeah, so now I just have like this dedicated emulation area. And then if I'm emulating things that are kind of like really high end, then we use that back there because I have another PC. I don't know. I ended up buying like a whole bunch of computers and mini PCs and stuff, which is, I'd never been a PC gamer, but like these plug and play devices that they have for retro stuff is just, it's amazing, man. Like emulation has gotten, I used to emulate stuff back like Nesticle in like 2001, like when emulators first came out. But it's just,
remember doing it on like the old like Android phones and stuff like that way back when. I remember having Mario 64 on like one of the super early like HTC flat screen phones that were like all white and whatnot. And this was like way back in like, I want to say this is like in like 07, man. Or
yeah,
08.
See, like that was about
no,
the
it was
time
like 09 because it was a little bit after the the iPhones came out.
Okay.
I think the iPhones came out in like 09, I want to say.
See, in like 06 and 07, I was into N64 emulation because you could do all the No Mercy hacks, and I was a huge fan of No Mercy. So like I would download those and play those and stuff. But like after that,
No Mercy.
I love that game. After that, I never really did much emulation.
WrestleMania 2000.
I actually like WCW NWO Revenge as the best out of all the N64
that one's
games.
fire too.
But that's just because the roster is just, it's literally perfect. Like I don't care that Ric Flair's not in there. I was never a Southern wrestling fan growing up because I lived mostly in the Northeast until I was like 12 or 13. And by that time, Flair was just old and fuddy-duddy. So NWA, all that sort of shit.
I liked Raven.
Yeah, dude, you got Raven's Flock in the game. You got Stick Boy, whose finisher was a pedigree. It was super cool. But yeah, like after that, I never really did much emulation. So when I started like messing around with stuff and seeing all this internal resolution upscaling, I'm like, what is that? And then I'm looking at it, I'm like, I'm playing Sega Saturn games in 4K with upscaled textures, and it looks amazing. Like, so yeah, like because with the whole game collecting thing, it was never about just having a big stupid collection. It was about the games. And if I could play the games in a different way and put a bunch of money in my pocket and actually play enhanced versions of them, I'd be foolish not to do it.
That's true. That's true.
But I mean, to each their own. I'm also not, there's a lot of retro gaming gatekeepers out there, which is why I don't like to associate with any of these communities. I'm not a Nintendo YouTuber. I'm not a retro gaming YouTuber. I'm just an individual who talks about video games because all these communities suck. There's always gatekeeper weirdos in them who are like, you're not playing on a CRT with RGB modded out system. No, I'm not. What's the problem? Like, who cares how you play the games? It's always just about the games at the end of the day.
And really it's about how you want to do it, because I mean, as my brother K Mega said earlier, like what I eat ain't gonna make you shit.
Exactly.
You know, like it doesn't matter at the end of the day. This is my experience, my life, my reality, the way I want to do my damn thing. But moving on and yeah, at the end of the day, my money as well. Getting into it, and you actually kind of touched upon it a little bit. I wanted to talk about a little bit of like the history and like how you actually got into games. And one of the things I didn't actually ask you before the show that I ask everybody that comes onto this show, I just forgot. We just got to talking about basketball, and I just veered right off. So, before I bring up basketball again and make us veer off, let me go on ahead and ask you, what was the very first console that you had in your home?
NES.
NES.
Yeah. My uncle had an NES, and that was the first time I ever played video games. He had an NES at Super Mario Brothers, and I was just blown away by it. And I would always go over to his house to play games because I didn't have anything for myself. And then he ended up getting a Sega Genesis with Sonic the Hedgehog 1. He didn't get the Altered Beast one in 91. And then I got for Christmas, it was like, oh, here's the one more gift behind grandma's couch. And it was just like a plastic bag with his NES and all the games in there. And I was like, holy shit.
Dang. I mean, that's a pretty fire gift right there. And I bet you were, I mean, come on, y'all. If y'all remember getting consoles as a little kid, that was like an okay to scream like a girl moment.
Oh, yeah. And then 2 years later, I got my first new to me console with Sega Genesis Model 2 and Sonic the Hedgehog 2 pack-in.
Bangers. But before I ask my next question, I just want to tell everybody that's coming through, that's filtering through here, and those of you that are here right now, and of course, the usuals. Thank you so much for coming out to the show. Make sure you hit that like button. If you're new, hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to get my way to 1,000 subscriptions, but I'm doing it my way, so I'm not in a dang hurry. I'm just, talking to people and enjoying making content, that type of stuff. So anyways, continuing further. So now you told me, what kind of kicked it off. Would you say that kicked it off, or like arcades kind of and stuff like that kind of kicked it off?
Arcades played a very minimal role in my life, because like, so the only time I would go to an arcade was at a mall. Like I remember seeing Mortal Kombat there's a restaurant in Southern Connecticut. It's like a fast food chain that's only in Southern Connecticut that everyone loves to eat at. It's a place called Duchess. And I used to go there with my grandma a lot, and just whoever would take me there because I love the fucking food. And they always had, like in the 90s, they always had like one or two arcade machines. Like they had a claw machine and then like an arcade cabinet. And that was the first time I saw Mortal Kombat and played Mortal Kombat. And of course, you know, I fell in love. The first time I ever played Street Fighter 2 was Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition when I was living in North Carolina, and my biological dad came down to visit, who lived in the Northeast, and he stayed at a Marriott hotel. And I remember when you would walk into the pool at the Marriott, like right before you got to like the pool itself, it was an indoor pool. They had like 3 arcade machines. There was a Pac-Man and a Street Fighter. I don't remember what the other one was.
This is vivid.
Yeah, I remember weird stuff like this. And so that was the first time I played Street Fighter 2. And then it was a Champion Edition. And then like I'd go to the mall sometimes when I was like 12, 13. And they had an arcade there. I played Virtua Fighter there. I played House of the Dead. That was the first time I ever played House of the Dead. And I remember, once again, I have a very vivid story. I was playing it, and like, so I'm just kind of like shooting, you know, getting my ass kicked. And I remember this older Asian guy came up, like not older, like he's probably like 18 or 19 and like hoop earrings and stuff like that. He's like, "Can I play with you?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so he's watching me like shoot the gun. He's like, no, you got to do it like this. And he holds the gun and he goes with his finger. And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then we just started doing it. And like, I don't know. I just remember weird stuff like that, like Top Skater and stuff like that. Cause I was big into skateboarding at that time. So I was like acting, cause it had the skateboard that you would ride on. I was acting like I was actually skating on it and stuff like that. But my arcade experiences were honestly few and far between. So I think that's why I remember so many of them, just because I wasn't in the arcades all the time.
Yeah, I have a very similar story to that. I mean, I'm not going to go on and say all my vividness like you did about it, but yeah, I mean, I enjoyed arcades. I mean, you know, especially the car games in arcade.
Daytona.
Daytona USA was a banger. The motorcycle games that they had, man, I got. And there was one space game that I can't remember off the top of my head that you sat on like a ship pretty much, and you rode it like a motorcycle, but it was like a motorcycle in space. It is something weird. But yeah, I mostly played a lot of my stuff in house, and that kind of goes on to my next question, which is like, at this point, did you call it like when you had the NES? Or was it later on when you got the Sega or something else that you kind of defined yourself as like, yeah, I'm a gamer? Like when people would ask you, you'd be like, yeah, I'm a gamer. You know, at school and stuff like that. When you're talking to your friends, you know, they knew you as like being down.
When I was like 3 or 4 years old and I played Super Mario Brothers at my uncle's house for the first time, it was like nothing blew my mind quite like that. And I was just like, what is this? This is absolutely insane. And yeah, it was pretty much since then. Because like I always, you know, growing up, I didn't, when I was born, my family was very poor. And then like as I got older, they started to have more money. And then like when I was in high school, you know, things were better. But like they couldn't afford like that sort of stuff. That's why my uncle had to give me his system, because, you know, my parents couldn't afford to buy me one. But like they would always try to take me over there. And then I had a cousin who lived down the street, because I had a very strange life growing up. So my parents, my mom and my biological dad, they had me, and then they got divorced like 3 months later because they were like, we're not supposed to be married, because they were just, you know, they were really kids.
Sure.
And so he ended up living down the street with his mother, and it was a 3-family house. And so they lived on the second floor, and on the third floor was his sister and her son, Nicholas, who was my age. And so she would always buy like he had a Sega Genesis, he had a Super Nintendo, he had an NES, he had a Game Boy, he had a Game Gear, he had all the Michael Jackson vinyls and stuff like that. And I used to ask my mom, like, I feel like we're in better shape in life than they are. Like, he's got 2 sisters. Like, does his mom even work? And one time she told me, she was like, you know, it's the government. And I never understood it until I was older. And I was like, oh, that government cheese. Because she was a single mom. And that's what she would do. She would just buy him whatever. Because he had the fucking Ghostbusters Playhouse. That's why I have a lot of toys now. A lot of people don't understand why I have these toys. I didn't have toys growing up. Where people had 12 X-Men, I had 1. That was it. That was all I had. So when I got older and I got my own money, it's like, fuck it, I'm gonna buy a bunch of these X-Men for myself. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, same thing. Ghostbusters, same thing. I didn't have a wealth of toys growing up because my family couldn't afford it, and I completely understand that sentiment. But it sucked when you were surrounded by people who, like in his case, his mom would spend, child support checks and stuff like that to keep him happy. I was friends with best friends with a pastor's son. And that was another thing I didn't really understand, because it's like, well, you're a pastor. How do you have money? They have this huge fucking house playing NBA Jam on a 52-inch screen. And I'm like, none of this computes. My dad is an assistant manager at a restaurant. He should be making more than a pastor. But, when you get older, you learn all that sort of shit and stuff. So, yeah, it was always interesting. But
yep, you start to learn about them wages and the collection plates and all.
Yeah, hey,
you start putting stuff together. Like, whoa, okay, wait a second. But yeah. I feel the very very similar to you as well, because, bro, me growing up, it was like, oh, okay, well, the next thing came out, I'm counting pennies, I'm scooping whatever games I got together. I'm dropping everything on the counter, and I'm saying, what you gonna give me for this? Because I'm trying to get that Dreamcast. I'm trying to get that 64 behind you. I'm trying to get the Nomad. I'm trying to
N64. I had a Sega Genesis, that same Sega Genesis, and I had accumulated games over the years from my mom and my stepdad, and then my biological dad, and then other family members, because I loved video games, so they would buy me them. And then when it came time to get the N64, I remember my mom let me put an ad in the newspaper, a classified ad. And I ended up selling it like 90% of the Sega stuff to some other guy to have money to get the N64. It made you kind of like value it more, though, I feel, because it wasn't just handed to you on a silver platter. It made you value what you got more so.
Yeah, every people are frustrated about subscription services and stuff like that now. And, in some ways I see what they're saying, but a lot of it, like, I go to think, man, back when I was a kid, man, if I had something like this right here, because I tell you, the amount of shopping I did in rental stores, looking behind the game, I'm look behind this, I'm look behind, especially back in like the old, Genesis days, where everything, I mean, you got lucky if they had the actual case to the game to look behind it and see how the game was looking and whatnot, and you go on ahead and like test it out for a weekend or whatnot, spend $10 or something like that to test it out or whatnot, and then you go on ahead and make your purchase if you're smart. But what was your experience like, bro?
No, yeah, like a lot of video game rentals, Blockbuster, weekend excursions to Blockbuster, and then we ended up moving to a place where there was like a video store that you could almost kind of walk to, and like it was literally like you had to walk on a highway, but I didn't give a shit, so I would walk on the highway to go down there. But yeah, like I wish I remember the Sega Channel they had for the Genesis, which was like an online subscription service back in the day. I would ask my parents all the fucking time for that. And it wasn't even that expensive. Like, I think it was like $20. I don't think it was available where I live, because it was only available in select areas. But it was only like $20 a month or something like that. And you got a bunch of Genesis games that you would play and like demos and stuff like that. Sega was always ahead of the times. Look at the Dreamcast.
Yep, they're so ahead of themselves that it staggered them.
Yep.
For sure. But did you end up getting into, like, before we move on to some more meat and potatoes, I'm wondering, like, did you end up getting like the Tower of Power through the Sega?
I never had a Sega. I never had a Sega CD. I played a Sega CD once at another family member's house that also was a government cheese family. And they had a Sega CD and Sonic CD, and I remember that vividly. And they had, like, it was like this it's the weirdest. Okay, here's the weird thing about it. All right, so my biological dad, I don't know how they were related to him, but there was a pair of twins named Patrick and Carrie. They were a boy and a girl. My stepdad had a pair of twin brother and sisters named Patrick and Carrie, a boy and a girl. And I was like, what the fuck? So we went over to Patrick and Carrie on my biological dad's side house once. And it was just like, I remember, like, I don't remember much about it, but it was this dilapidated house. There was an old man in the living room. I don't know how I was related to these people. So there was just a random old man in the living room with an oxygen tank creeping me out. And then I went to the bedroom where Patrick and Carrie were, and it was just like, once again, all this government cheese video game shit. And they had the Sega CD, and that's when I played that for the first time. But I did have a Sega 32X because my biological dad came down to visit us in North Carolina, and there was this indoor flea market that we went to. And this was when the 32X was pretty much on its way out. And they had it bundled with Star Wars Arcade for like $60 or something like that. And so he got that for me because I wanted it. And I loved the 32X. I thought it was awesome. I still think it's awesome. But no, I never had the Sega CD growing up. So it was kind of cool to be able to play those games for the first time when you were older.
Well, we all know what happened after Sega 32X. It ended up going up, and we're actually not going up. It went down, and then Saturn came up, and also PlayStation finally entered the party. I want to know where you were at. Were you at Saturn, or were you at PlayStation first?
I wanted a Saturn. I ended up. So I ended up, out of those three. Here's a funny one. So there was also another system that was out around that time, the Virtual Boy.
Oh no!
I picked Christmas '95. I picked the Virtual Boy.
Oh, and wow!
My biological dad got me that. I wanted a set. I remember my mom used to. I went to this like really small school for like a year, and somehow my mother was like a teacher there for fucking kids that were like 4 or 5 years older, like preschool kids. And I'm like, you have no teaching degree. What the fuck is this? But it was like a religious school, so it didn't really matter. Like they just hire anyone. And I'll never forget when the Sega Saturn came out, there was this fucking little weird kid in my mom's class. His name was Will. And he would always say his name, Will, and it just always would creep me out. He was kind of, I don't know, he was kind of weird. And his dad dropped him off. And this motherfucker, and I was just hanging out, like waiting for school to start because obviously I would have to get there earlier. It was all like in one school. I was in like 4th or 5th grade or something like that. And this dude comes in to drop off the kid Will, and he looks at my mom. He's like, I just got a Sega Saturn with Daytona USA. It's pretty cool, very expensive. My mom was like, oh, that's nice. He was like, yeah, really cutting edge stuff. It's really good stuff. I was like, is this dude trying to fuck my mom? And like bang her, and he's using the Sega Saturn as the catalyst here. Like, what is this? What is happening right now? It was the weirdest thing. But I ended up getting a Saturn because
because of him. Wait a second, because of him.
No. My best friend at the time. See, because so I got the N64 in 96, summer of 96, or maybe it was a little later, whenever Turok came out. I'm pretty sure it was 96.
Which one?
The first one.
Okay. I was a big Rage Wars fan.
maybe fall of 96 is when I got that. And then the Saturn started going on its way out. So I ended up scooping up one of those for like super cheap and like a bunch of games. And my best friend at the time had a PlayStation. So whenever I'd want to play PlayStation stuff or whatever, I could play it on his thing. I could just go over to his house. If he wanted to play Saturn stuff, we both had an N64, I think. I think we both had an N64. I know I had one for sure because we used to play WCW NWO Revenge over at my house, and that was in 8th grade. So 98 now we're into. Yeah. So to answer your question, Saturn was what I wanted. I ended up with Virtual Boy, but eventually I got a Saturn. So like PlayStation's a lot like Super Nintendo to me. I would say I have more nostalgia for PlayStation than Super Nintendo though, because like people are like, oh, Super Metroid, A Link to the Past. And I'm like, I played those games when I was 19, 20 years old. Like they don't quite hit with me like they do with you because you were 8 or 9 playing those games. So
Sure.
nostalgia is a hell of a drug. Great games, but give me Ocarina, give me Metroid Prime over those games any day of the week.
Gotcha. So PlayStation's more in the picture now. I mean, did you end up getting more into PlayStation, once once the generation really got pumping, long boxes were gone, you got the jewel cases now.
No, because I remember the first time I played PlayStation was that another weird kid that I went to that school
What's
with.
up with you and all these weird kids, bro?
I don't know. The kid's name was John P. And I remember John P had an older brother, and his older brother had a PlayStation, had just gotten a PlayStation. He got Tekken and he got Twisted Metal, and I loved playing it. But no, I mean, I like Metal Gear Solid. Like I played that game with my friend over at his house. Like he would play for an hour and then he'd let me play for an hour. So we'd go back and forth or whatever. Like we wouldn't
trade-offs on them single players. Yep.
Yeah. So, and then kind of somewhere along the way, I ended up getting a PlayStation, but then I'm starting to get into like 15 and 16 years old, and I wasn't into video games as much.
Oh, so a drop-off happened.
Yeah, big drop off. I ended up getting a Dreamcast for like back when they were like $99. And then like that was I ended up with a PS2 because it was a cheap DVD player, and it was the easiest thing to do. But yeah, I wasn't playing much of anything when I was like 15, 16 years old.
Okay, so what made you get out of gaming? Was it just life, just doing other things, being more interested? Were you into sports or like
I
what
was
happened?
into skateboarding, alcohol, drugs, and women, and like that took up most of my time.
Got it. So I mean that's fairly oh man, I shouldn't say regular.
It is though.
But it is. Let's be honest, it is some fairly regular stuff because we all knew about this, what was going on in high school and whatnot. And we ain't gonna pretend like it didn't happen. But anyways, what ended up finding you back into it, and what generation? So let's keep it gaming.
It was actually the PS2. Because I remember that
wasn't that long.
Well, no, it was because I still had that PS2. So we're in like 2001 or 2002 around this point. And I guess it would be 02. Yeah, it would be 02 because I graduated in 03. I don't know, somewhere around there. And we lived in North Carolina, and if you got any sort of snow in North Carolina, the whole state would shut down. It could be like a dusting. It didn't matter. Nobody knew what
like
to
Texas.
Do. So, yeah, very similar. I had nothing to do. Like, I wanted to go party. I wanted to go do this, that, and the other. We ended up getting a large storm. And we were snowed in. Like, you couldn't go anywhere. And I'm like, all right. And so I'm sitting in the house, and I'm bored out of my mind. I can't go skate. I can't go see the girl I'm dating. I can't go hang out with the homies. I can't go party. What am I supposed to do? So I'm looking through some stuff that I have. I'm like, the PlayStation 2. I haven't really messed around with this in a while. And then I found a box of games that I had. and I found Metal Gear Solid 2, and I was like, I bought this for like $3 at GameStop. I never played it. I was like, maybe I'll play it. And I sat there and I played that game over the course of like 2 or 3 days.
You said this joint right here.
Exactly. And that was the copy it was, like with all the million stickers on it and all that stuff. And I played that game and it blew my mind. Like the storytelling, I hadn't really experienced storytelling. I mean, Shenmue did to some degree, but I didn't feel like when I played Shenmue, I necessarily appreciated the story as much. It was more about the world itself to me. Like that was the really cool thing.
It was nuts.
I never really connected with the story until Metal Gear Solid 2. And I was like, the Patriots, Lolly Lule Low, who really runs the country, the control of media and all this sort of shit. And it just put me down a rabbit hole. And I was like, okay, I need to hold on a second. This is some cool stuff here. So that's when I wouldn't say I fully went back to gaming because I was still doing all my degenerate stuff, but gaming became another part of my life to the point of where it was like, do I want to go buy a couple pills or do I want to save the money and, buy a game? And I was like, maybe I'll buy a game. Cause we didn't have a game store in our town. We had a Kmart and a Walmart, but if like you wanted to go buy used games, you had to drive 40 minutes one way. So then it became a thing where it was like, oh, nah, I'm not going to go party tonight. I'm going to chill. I'm going to, play some games. I ended up getting a GameCube because
keeping you out of trouble.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you.
For real.
It essentially did, like, because a lot of those people that I hung out with never got beyond that stage of their life. And a lot of them are in jail. A lot of them are in dead. Some of them made it out. But a majority of them are dead or in jail. And it's like, that would have been me 100%, 110%, because I have a very addictive personality and I wouldn't have been able to sort of come out of that situation. If it wasn't for that game to sort of bring me back into games. And then it was kind of like, I was able, because when I got that GameCube, I ended up getting an Intech screen that you could attach to the GameCube. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. This has a cigarette lighter in the car. I was like, oh, dude, I can put this in the car. So I had a Ford Explorer and it had an armrest in the middle. And I bought some Velcro straps that were like glue on one side and Velcro on the other. And I strapped it on to the armrest. And we would just like, it would be like 8 or 9 dudes hotboxing this thing, playing Rocky and Street Hoops on the GameCube and the thing. So it was cool because it was like, I could, still play the games, but everyone's cool with it. Now we're playing games and still.
I'm wondering who's. I'm sure somebody's in that car at some point said, "I should have left you dead, Billy. I should have left you dead."
It was wild, man. It was a fun time, but it definitely, I would say, gaming kept me more grounded, and it definitely veered me into other ways instead of just the self-destructive partying lifestyle that I was accustomed to at that time.
Okay. I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, sounds like it helped you out quite a bit.
It did. It did for sure.
Kept your head on straight, kept you on the swivel. Gotcha. So, so PS2 helped you out, got you through some times. Now I want to ask you, did you ever go across the pond to Microsoft and see what they had going on with that original Xbox at all? Or were you just set in your ways with the PlayStation at the time? Because for a while I was set in my ways on that PlayStation for a hot minute because it was just like, dude, this has everything. But
when the 360 came out, I had actually just gotten, because in the small town I was in, a GameStop came in there. And I remember driving by, I was going to my apartment. I was like 19 or 20 years old. And I saw that they put up the sign and I was like, holy fuck. So I just, drove over there real quick.
Whipped it.
And they had a sign on the door. It was like, if you want to apply for a job, call this number. So I took out my phone. I called the number right there in the parking lot. I ended up working there. And the general manager that was there, he knew how to mod original Xboxes. So the Xbox 360 had just came out, and we had Xboxes. People were trading in Xboxes left and right to upgrade to the Xbox 360. Same with the PS2, but I already had a PS2.
So every generation that happens.
I ended up getting one of the used Xboxes that we had in the store, and then he ended up modding it for me. So with the Xbox, I could either download games, which would take forever, or if I had a disc, I could put the disc into my Xbox and it would burn it to the
Rip it.
external hard drive that was with it. So I would go in some mornings, when it was just me in the store, I'd bring my Xbox, like, oh, this game came out. Well, we're putting that on the hard drive today. And then I ended up getting a Blockbuster rental membership when I ended up quitting there. And they had it where it was like you get unlimited games for like, I think it was $20 a month or something. So I would literally, because the Blockbuster was literally like, I could see it out of my apartment window. So I'd go over there, I'd get a game, I'd bring it home, I'd burn it, and I'd bring it back and be like, I don't really like this game. I'm gonna get something else. I remember one time I did like 3 or 4 games in a row. I'd been to Blockbuster like 3 or 4 times in like a span of like an hour, hour and a half. And they were like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm very particular about my games, sir. Like, don't question me. I'm the customer here. So eventually I did get the 360 though, with Call of Duty 2. And because that game just blew me away with the online multiplayer.
Facts.
And it was like, you had to have the component cables. I had one of those big rear projection TVs because my parents had moved from North Carolina. They moved to Michigan.
You talking about the big old 1080Is?
No.
Was it 1080p?
No, hell no. This wasn't even HD. It was just one of those big box TVs, like the 52-inch ones. And they got a finger hut because they couldn't really afford it. So they just did the monthly payments. But when they moved, they didn't want to haul that with them. So I ended up with that. But it was like, you got to
have wheels.
No, it did not have wheels.
Oh, no.
It was a nightmare.
It was mega old then.
It was. They were always like, you got to have the component cables. You got to do this. I remember I bought an open box 720p TV from Best Buy. It was 19 inches. It cost me $250. And I was happy. I would play it. I had it right next to my big rear projection TV, and I would play that, and I was happy as a clam. I was like, this works for me.
No, I feel that. I love my old little tube symphonic 19-inch TV. Man, I love those. Back in the day, those are fantastic. But all right, so the original Xbox, you got down on it. You were ripping games like a fool on that thing.
Yes.
What was your favorite thing over on that Xbox at that time? Since it was like kind of like the new kid in town, what was Halo the thing 2. That kind of was all right, Halo.
By far, because since my Xbox was modded, you couldn't play on Xbox Live, but there was a service called Xlink Kai where you could, and it was free to use, so that's what we would play on. And we would do like super bounces to get out of the maps and stuff. And the way you could set up lobbies was like you could choose when you wanted to set up a lobby on Xlink Kai. So we would super bounce out of the map, and then we would just open up a lobby, and we would like watch them like little ants, just like walking around like looking for us, trying to kill us, and then we just start picking them off left to right. But we also used to do tournaments at our GameStop where we would play Halo 2. We would set up like 4 or 5 CRT TVs and then a bunch of Xboxes with Halo 2 running on them, and so that was super fun. But yeah, Halo 2 was the tits. I loved that game.
All right, well, let's start moving more into some current stuff, but let's not forget about let's hit real quick on the 360 and PS3. I'm curious, which one was interesting to you, because you got a taste of both now,
I ended up getting a 360 when I was working at that GameStop. So I ended up getting a 360. It ended up breaking on me, of course, with the Red Ring of Death. I didn't get a PS3 until Metal Gear Solid 4 came out. And I remember walking into Best Buy. Head. Yeah, I remember walking into Best Buy and I was like, I need this. It was like $600 for the bundle. And I was like, can I get a credit card? And they were like, oh, let's check. And they're like, yeah, we approved it for $2,000. I was like, what? Really? I was like, well, great. Put it, here you go. Put it on the card. This is my PS3 now. So yeah.
Goodness gracious. What was the best experience on both the 360 and the PS3?
Metal Gear Solid 4.
On both 100%. Of them.
Well, no. Modern Warfare. The first Modern Warfare, because I had gold guns on the PS3 version, the Xbox 360 version, and even the Wii version. I played that game to death.
Yeah, sounds like you were a freaking maniac. Got it. All right, jumping ahead. Now we see the reveal for the Xbox One, and we all know that a lot of people didn't absolutely love it, although they had a fair launch lineup. PlayStation, on the other hand, had a fantastic show, kind of. I mean, some people complained about what was it, Knack, and some Killzone, but I mean, Killzone looked phenomenal in that,
of course,
showcase and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, Killzone was that game. Yeah, because they lied. But so the showcases were something. The lineup for Xbox looked all right, but where were you at as a customer for both of these consoles? Did you stagger on either one, or you staggered on both?
Yeah, I waited because I ended up with a Wii U, and that sort of led me into content creation just in a different way. So I didn't really have time to mess with it. I ended up getting a PS4 with the Black Ops 2 bundle, and then a friend of mine actually sent me an Xbox One S after the fact. But yeah, I wasn't super interested in either of those right off.
Why is that? That's interesting. I've never heard of somebody that was not interested in either one of those at the beginning of the generation.
The Xbox One just didn't impress me, and time was a big factor. Metal Gear Solid 5, I hated because they got rid of David Hayter. And that literally ruined the game for me. It's still a good game, but it's not up to the pedigree of the others. So there just wasn't really anything like I was like, oh, I need to play this right now. Like, God of War was starting to look different. I preferred the older style. I still kind of prefer the older style. Like, I get it. The whole deep story narrative, dad, son. Oh, that's awesome. Like, I don't care. I don't care about stuff like that. Like, I'm not going to cry. The Last of Us, I had a PS3. I remember everyone was blowing The Last of Us. I played it, bought it, beat it in like 12, 13 hours. And I was just like, what am I missing here? Because I mean, it's a good game. It's not great. It's not a 10. Like, you have this foul mouthed little girl who could shoot a gun like Jesus Christ, but she dips her toe in the water and she has a panic attack. All the puzzles are the exact same with this crate, dumpster, ladder, just some weird variation of that. I just felt like there wasn't consistency in it. The story itself, I mean, okay, the ending was kind of interesting, but like everything else was just very cliche zombies, Walking Dead stuff that was popular at that time that I never really got into. So
with the whole, I don't know. I mean, anybody that tells me that they're tired of zombies is a friend in my book, because I'm just like, man, I'm so tired of games leaning on the zombie. I mean, I'm not going to say it doesn't work in certain games. It's fantastic in certain games. The last Dead Island that came out looked great in there. The flesh system and all that stuff. That stuff looked cool, but it's still like the same thing 100 other games are doing. Zombies.
I mean, Dead Island 2 is just Dead Island 1, but prettier. Like, really, at the end of the day. And I mean, like, some zombie stuff is fine, but I mean, they also went about it when they were like, oh, it's not zombies, they're clickers, they're different. It's like, shut up. Very pretentious. That's when the pretentious era of gaming started, was with that game. And it was like, the cup your own fart and sniff it type people. Now it's like, I don't get it. Like, if I wanted a story like that, I would just watch one of the hundreds of movies or television shows that replicate that in the same sort of way. Like, I mean, the gameplay was fine, but it was also.
How'd you like the actual show?
I didn't watch it. I already know what happens. I'm well aware of what's going to happen in this show. The girl, her head is kind of big. I don't feel like she looks like Ellie.
I agree. I said that a while back. Go ahead.
The girl who plays Ellie's voice, I learned, was the frickin' ginger kid from Growing Pains, the daughter that ended up coming. What was her freaking name? Maggie, I think it was. And I never liked her when I was a kid. So now it's like, oh, I'm forced to like this person. I don't
Interesting.
know. The Last of Us is a damn good game. The Last of Us 2 is a damn good game. Much better game than the first game. The Last of Us 1 has a better story because I hated the whole story of the second one, especially like the ending and stuff like that. But I don't think The Last of Us 1 is one of the best games ever. I don't. Far from it. That's just my personal opinion. If people don't like it, that's fine. I don't care.
Yeah. Yep. It's your opinion, my opinion. I mean, I'm kind of, I mean, I think it's one of the most detailed games I've ever seen, both 1 and 2, for the times that they came, and some of the best stories that were ever written. But is it one of my favorite games? That's a different question.
Right.
That, you know, and for me, it's just like I played both 1 and 2 once, beat it,
Right.
and was done with it.
I would say you give me Spider-Man. Spider-Man is PlayStation's best IP right now. I love Spider-Man. Spider-Man on PlayStation 4, phenomenal. Spider-Man Miles Morales on the PlayStation 5, phenomenal. I bought Spider-Man on my Steam Deck. Why? Because it's phenomenal. And it was great to play that game mobily. I love Spider-Man. You know what Spider-Man doesn't have? Some weird cliche zombie story. Some weird parental figure and a kid, which is evidently the template now for Sony.
All right. So you already told me when you jumped on the Xbox One and the PS4. You said a little bit later. So then along came the Switch during that generation, and you had mentioned earlier, you're big into Wii U and stuff like that.
I was forced into Wii U. I was forced into 3DS and Wii U because I started.
You make it sound like you were up. You make it sound like you were stuck up by somebody or something like that.
No, I was working for a website, and I just happened to be. I started writing for a website in 2012 because a friend of mine was working for them, and he got a bunch of free video games, and I was like, I want free video games. He's like, can you write? I was like, there's only one way to find out. And so they gave me a trial run, and I was the only one that had a Wii U. I ended up being the only one who had a 3DS as well. So they were like, well, that's just what you're going to cover. So now I'm looking at things from a different perspective because it's like, well, now my time is actually being put into stuff that's being put out there. It's not just for my self-satisfaction. It's to grow things. So I ended up stuck with those two things. So I ended up learning all the ins and outs of all the games and stuff like that. That website, everyone kind of started going their separate ways. And so I was like, well, I've been doing all this Nintendo stuff for the past year plus on this other website. I guess that's kind of, what I'm well informed about it now. So I ended up joining another website that was a Nintendo based website, and they put me on the bottom of the barrel, and I was like, okay, I'll be running this thing after a little while. And I did. But so once again, the focus was on Nintendo stuff. It was a Nintendo only website. So once again, I'm quote unquote forced to focus all my attention on that. So people think, you cover a lot of Nintendo stuff on your channel just to get clicks. No, stupid. I've been doing this for 11 years now. Okay. It's just kind of how it ended up happening for me. I still play all the other systems. I still talk about the other stuff. It's just I happen to know more about Nintendo at the end of the day than I probably do these other systems, even though I know quite a bit about them because it's what I've been doing for the past, 11 years.
Yep. It's like being a mechanic.
Yeah.
You like know this.
The PS5 and the Xbox Series X, I bought both of those on launch day. The Switch, I got on launch day because I needed to. I needed it for this to work for this website.
Okay. So let's actually dig into that real quick. So the Series X and S and PS5, you were pretty vocal early in the generation about, Xbox and games, the lack thereof and whatnot. And I like I just want you to kind of look from the big. Just he jumped out on accident. Let me get him. I will be right back. Oh no, he's back. All right, that was quick.
Okay, yeah, that was weird. I'm on Ethernet too, so I don't know what the hell happened.
It's Discord, bruh. That's how it works over here. That's how it works. But anyways, so I want to know like how it kind of stacks up for you now. Like you seen the way kind of Xbox has kind of really been slow out the gate. PS5 came pretty hard out the gate, and then we seen this last showcase.
They're
and you're left asking a lot of questions. Yeah, going ahead, brother. Going ahead.
They're both proving one thing, and that was they rushed this console generation. There has still not been an experience. Let me re-say that. The one experience that I've had with my PlayStation 5 or my Xbox Series X where I was like, all right, this is next gen. This is something that couldn't be done last generation, at least up to this quality, is Gran Turismo 7 VR mode. Everything else, you could have ran that on a PlayStation 4 with a few less lighting textures and no ray tracing, and you would have been fine. Everything else. You're telling me Ratchet and Clank or Rift Apart couldn't have been a PS4 game? The whole mechanic was supposed to be like, oh, you could rip these holes through time. It brings you, it's a teleport system. Something that's been done in video games forever. There's no, and your game
and it's
like
very specific. It's not like you can just go into any level and just rip a hole through it and just jump wherever you want.
Exactly. God of War Ragnarok came out on the PlayStation 4. Okay. Xbox, Jesus Christ, Redfall. You put this game out there and thought, you know what? This is a damn good game. The only reason Redfall came out is because Xbox gave themselves a self-imposed deadline of these are the games that are coming out within the next 12 months. And if it wasn't for Redfall, none of those games would have came out in that 12 months. Redfall was the only one to make it, and that was because they needed to have something out there. Mismanagement. And it's also because of the industry itself, though. I put a lot of the blame on Sony. I put a lot of the blame on Microsoft. I will put a lot of the blame on Nintendo if, the second half of 2023 sucks. Because that's what we're being told, that it's going to suck for Nintendo. But the problem is the industry is getting too big for itself. When I go back, I've been going through some old gaming magazines lately. When I go back to 95 and 96, all right, let's just take 95. Let's say 95.
You're looking at the Nintendo Powers and like Game Pros and Game Informers and stuff like that. Yep. Okay.
When you look at the amount of hardware that was being released and you look at the amount of games that were being released, it was fucking insane.
It was a Wild West.
You had the Sega Genesis, you had the Super Nintendo, you had the Game Gear, you had the Game Boy, you had the Sega Saturn had just come out, the PlayStation 1 had just came out, the N64 was coming out, the Virtual Boy had been released, you had the 3DO, you had the Neo Geo, you had the Philips CDI. There was 10 different fucking
Atari
Jaguar
going on.
Atari Jaguar. All these platforms going on. You had actual generational leaps where it was like 16-bit to 64-bit. You look at Super Mario World to Super Mario 64. Games were advancing, but it wasn't hurting the development time of these games. Now we're getting to the point of where a game has to be a certain style. It has to be if we're talking about a AAA game, it has to be a certain style. There has to be a certain level to it, and it's taking 5 years, 6 years for this game to come out. So now we're having these 5 to 6 years was longer than these consoles were on the market for back in the day. All right. As far as no successor on the marketplace, look at what Sega did. 91 was the Sega Genesis. 95 was the Sega Saturn. 99
and a lot in between. And a lot in between.
But let's just take those as the three pillars.
Okay.
3 systems in 1 decade. Now we're expected to wait for games for the whole decade, nearly. It's crazy.
15 years and you might get one game out of
the budgets are skyrocketing. The visions are being more clouded and all this sort of stuff. And I honestly feel like it will crash. It's not going to be as big as the 83 crash, which honestly is overhyped to begin with. That was more of just Atari failing because the video game market in the UK and Japan and stuff like that in 83 was fine. It was just a US thing. But I definitely think you're going to see a lot of these companies go, and you're already seeing it with current video games because companies won't take a risk. If you take a risk and you fail, you're done. That's it. You blew your budget, yeah, you're fucked. Pack your bags. You're putting a sign on the door, out of business. That's why you're seeing all these remakes and remasters because it's easy money.
Right.
You're going back to a time. You're taking the best games from that era and making them better, making them modern. And while I like those things,
stretching nostalgia, yeah.
You're stretching that nostalgia. You're stretching it beyond belief. And eventually you're going to have to come up with new ideas. You're going to have to come up with something different. And I don't think a lot of these companies can. I don't think they can.
Look at Square Enix right now. They are stuck with Final Fantasy. They don't know what else to do.
No, they know what to do. Make a fucking Splatoon ripoff with foam and surfboard. Out of your goddamn mind. That PlayStation Showcase, people say, oh, we had State of Plays. Okay. The last time you had a PlayStation Showcase was over 600 days ago. Over 2 years ago, nearly. And that's what you got. That's what you got. A bunch of games with no release dates, no gameplay footage, coming out in 2024 and beyond. Spider-Man. You couldn't even get a release date for Spider-Man. You got fall. And I'm supposed to believe that everything is hunky-dory, but the fucking companies don't care because they're making money. They're making more money now than they've ever made before. So it's like, fuck it. What's my incentive? That's the problem. Competition. Let's go back to what I said about 95. Competition. You had 11 fucking platforms on the marketplace. Everyone was cutthroat. Everyone wanted to fuck everyone over. It wasn't we're going to send, I know I'm going on a tangent here.
No, you're fine.
We're not going to send, we're sending nice tweets to companies. Oh, congratulations. Xbox sending a tweet to PlayStation. Congratulations.
Yeah, Herman Holtz.
This sort of shit, this, that, and the other. These companies would take out advertisements saying, fuck our competitors. Our shit is better. Do the math. Genesis does what Nintendo don't.
Oh, man. Those are
and
dangerous
we've lost
times.
all that. We've lost. And you know what? That's why I'm glad that I am my age, because I have been around. I was born
you can remember that stuff. Yep.
I have risen through the video game ranks. Like, yeah, you could say, oh, Atari and stuff. Nobody gives a fuck about Atari. That's why Atari stuff costs pennies for these Atari 2600 games. Nobody cares. You might care if you were like 50 years old because your dad would come home from work drunk and get drunk and he'd probably throw a beer at the Atari or something like that. But let's be real. Most people don't give a shit about Atari, ColecoVision, and television. Very small amount of people. There's a reason why the NES still holds a commanding value. There's a reason why NES games still hold a commanding value, because that's where the nostalgia really starts for most people. And I'm thankful that I got to see these rises and these wars and these consoles and this competition. Constant competition. I didn't even mention the Sega CD in 95. I didn't even mention the fact that Nintendo had finished a CD attachment for the Super Nintendo and already given at CES 95, had already given the specs of how much it was going to cost, what it was going to be compared to the Sega CD. Maybe it was 94. I think it was 94. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy. The competition has just dwindled down so much to where you have Nintendo, who's the weirdo, just doing their own thing, marching to the beat of their own drum, making money hand over fist. You have Microsoft, and then you have PlayStation, and these two companies are supposed to be competing against each other, but they're not. They're going in completely
different directions, and they're almost trying not to pretend they exist until one of them like fouls them, like fouling the play, and then it's like, what did you do? Like, it's like two little kids complaining at each other and like talking to, grandpa about how they screwed up the couch and it was his fault and stuff like that. Going back and forth. And I mean, I got to ask you while we're on the subject, like, what do you think about like the whole kind of acquisition season that is gaming right now. Let's not just say Microsoft, because I mean Microsoft's just making a big splash, but this is happening. What is it like all around gaming,
industry wide?
Yeah, industry wide. Thank you. And this is happening industry wide. What are your thoughts with everything kind of being, sacking up, everyone, doing their thing?
The easy thing is to say, oh, I don't like this or the other. It's not as big of a deal as a lot of people make it out to be, because your competition is already dwindled. We just established that. People think this is gonna, make things more predatory, less competition in the video game marketplace. You could buy a company and not do shit with them. Remember this company called Microsoft that bought Rare, coming off of Rare's era of greatness on the N64, some success on the GameCube, and they bought Rare with Banjo-Kazooie and Conker's Bad Fur Day and all this stuff, and they do jack shit with them. They do Rare. What is Rare doing nowadays? They're making a sequel, or they're making a game called Everwild. Well, yeah, they have Sea of Thieves, which if you watch that documentary, there's a voice clip of me in it being like, nobody's going to be playing this game in 6 months. But you know what? It worked in Xbox's favor. By not having games, you force people to play Sea of Thieves to actually, act like they like it. But
oh, you disrespectful.
I don't feel like you could buy up anyone in the world. It doesn't fucking matter if you don't have leadership to make them work in your favor, to make them, your sort of to do things that they're known for doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a grown-ass man. I will play a game. I own all the consoles. Most people own all the consoles. Like, I'll play a game. If it's something that's exclusive to one system, fine. I'll play it on that one system. Like, I don't get the whole hubbub. Like, oh, no, we're not going to have... Who cares? Shut up. I know I'm going to get some heat for saying that, but I
agree. I've been telling people, like, stop complaining about Final Fantasy for a hot minute. I'm like, dude, it's been out for a minute. Just go play it on PlayStation. But then again, I don't care about it.
The thing is, like, it costs money to port games over to other systems. Square Enix doesn't bring stuff to Xbox because a lot of Xbox people don't buy games. And Xbox fans get so mad at that. Show me one fucking third-party game that came out on the Xbox and PlayStation 5 and came out on the Xbox Series where the Xbox version outsold the PlayStation version. Show me one game. That's all I'm asking. One game. You can't. And that's not because of console sales. That's because when you buy an Xbox, unless you're one of these diehard Xbox Twitter people, you buy it for Game Pass. I don't buy Xbox. You know what I did during that PlayStation presentation? I was like, I did it with SpawnWeb. I was like, is this coming out on Xbox? And he would be like, yeah or no. And if he said yeah, I'd be like, is it coming out on Game Pass? And he said no. I was like, well, then I'm not going to play it because, like, this looks like a Game Pass game. There's a reason why Game Pass has a stigma. And Starfield could be the best fucking thing in the world, but it's going to take more than Starfield. It's going to take constant consistency because that's not what you're getting with Xbox right now. And honestly, you're not getting it with PlayStation right now either, looking at this showcase they had. And Nintendo, yeah, they released the game of the year. But what the fuck else is going on? They have one game scheduled for the rest of the year, Pikmin 4, which I don't understand why people are obsessed with Pikmin. It's weird. Weird to me. I don't like it.
I don't know. I think Pikmin's kind of dope. I kind of like it. Am I running after it to go get day one? Probably not. But
right.
But do I think it's a pretty dope little neat game? Yeah, I think it's pretty nice. And do I love everything that you're saying about Xbox right now, knowing that is the console that I play on the most? Not really. Your opinion doesn't bother me at all. But at the same time, some of that stuff ain't wrong. I mean, especially about the consistency thing. I've been saying that for a hot minute. It's like, as soon as we drop something good, we take like another step to step and a half back. And it's just like, I just really want you guys to just keep 10 toes down and like take the steps forward. I don't care how slow you take them. Just make sure they're going forward. Let's not. This Redfall thing was so abysmal. And
Did you
like,
beat it?
yeah, I beat it. I beat the game. I beat the game. And I'll tell everybody, I had a good time playing it with friends. Would I play that game alone?
Hell no.
Not again. I played it alone for a little while, and I was like, all right, this is all. This is okay. And then like I ended up playing with a friend, and I'm able to jump on top of stuff because I was playing with somebody that I was pretty grounded. I couldn't, do all those moving up or transporting and stuff like that. And as soon as I played it with a friend, I was like, I don't want to ever play this single player again because I can't move like that without you. So I ended up playing the rest of the game like that. It was a broken mess. I was complaining 90% of the time, but at least I was complaining with somebody else. Right. like I was able to share that experience with somebody else. So I came out of it having some fun, but having a lot to gripe about and to feel that I've been misled by Microsoft, which has told me, look out for this game. Well, we got it, and we ain't happy with it. So I ain't saying I'm not going to sit here. Although, like I say, I love me some Xbox. I got all the systems, of course, but I love me some Xbox. But I'm not finna sit here and cap just because you say something I don't particularly like. Some of it's honest, and I mean, or I shouldn't even say some of it. Most of it, if not all of it, is honest. And just because I don't like hearing it doesn't make it any less truthful.
While I say that Xbox people don't buy games on third-party stuff, I actually buy 90% of my third-party games on my Xbox Series X because I like the controller more. I play my Xbox Series X way more than I play my PlayStation 5. The only time I play my PlayStation 5 is for exclusives. I don't like the DualSense controller. I think it's big, it's gaudy. The haptic trigger.
I actually thought that was like the coolest thing about the dang console was the DualSense controller. I was like, this big old brick came in. And like, I don't like this thing. This thing is a monstrosity. I don't understand how a place like Japan produced something so dang massive. Like to me, that made me just puzzled. But like, I thought the whole controller thing, I was like, the haptic feedback. And I mean, I could do without the noise coming out of the controller. I don't need to hear cop noises when I'm running away from police in not in San Andreas, but in GTA 5 and stuff like that. I don't need to hear all that. But I mean the rumble, I and stuff like that. I just felt like it was pretty cool. I don't feel like PlayStation's using their features enough in their games though. Like God of War was pitiful. I was like, what is this? This is not next gen controller wise.
Right. But I mean, I don't like controller gimmicks. Like,
fair.
Controllers have been around forever. Let them control the game. Like, I don't
remember them old PlayStation controllers with like fans in it. It's supposed to keep your hands cool.
Yeah, the Nyko ones.
Yep. Yeah, they had all sorts of crazy kind of controllers back in the day. Y'all have no idea. This is before like some of this was before like USBs. So you had to like sometimes even plug your controller into the wall to get certain features working, or use batteries. Better yet, I remember specifically for those N64 Rumble packs. Like some of them actually came with the batteries, and then you had to plug the memory card in on the top of that, and that controller was like 10 pounds by the time you got done plugging everything into it. That joint was wild. But continuing forward, so. You said all that about like Xbox and how the acquisitions are happening, throughout the industry and whatnot. Xbox is going to do what they're going to do. People can always use the stuff that they purchase, or don't use them as anticipated to be used. So, I want to know now. I mean, so. Xbox or Microsoft seems like they want to do it big with some of these acquisitions. Obviously, like Bethesda, as you said, Rare back then. They got Playground, Obsidian. Even further into the past a little bit, and currently going for the jugular with Activision Blizzard deal. Sony's moving differently. Do you like the way that they're moving different than something like Xbox, how they're doing everything big? Sony's doing things little, but at the same time, it's just like they also got rid of some little things too, as of
Well, so
recently.
well, Sony kind of has abandoned the Japanese market.
You think so?
Yeah, oh yeah. I
Or
mean, with
no
the
so?
closing, yeah, with the closing of Sony in Japan, I mean, the focus on Western IPs and titles and stuff like that, like they're not making Japanese centric games, which a lot of people get very upset and angry about. That you have to you have to look at your biggest market. Japan used to be a dominating market in the 90s. It's not the 90s anymore. When you look at the scope of Japan versus, other places right now, like a game can sell 10,000 copies in 1 week in Japan and be one of the top selling games for that week. Like it's a dwindling market. So I understand why Sony is sort of veering away from that market, because you got to go where your money is. And, the USA is the biggest place for games. In the same breath, though, um, you're seeing this, like, kind of like I said before, with the development times and stuff like that. It's starting to catch up to Sony. That's why they had nothing to show for their showcase. Microsoft can buy all the companies in the damn world. They haven't produced anything with these acquisitions. Rare. You got your Sea of Thieves. Okay, it took a while. It caught on. All right. I guess you could kind of consider that a thing.
Would you
What else have they
accept an
done?
argument? Would you accept an argument at all with look at the timeline some of these games, or look at the timeline some of these acquisitions happen versus the amount of time that it takes to create a game? Like if you look specifically at like some of the acquisitions that happened in 2017, and if they just started a project, a big AAA project by then, we would just be now kind of seeing it. Am I wrong or
It's
right about that?
to some degree,
Okay.
you're right, but I don't trust Microsoft with their acquisitions, and I don't think anyone should, because of how they did absolutely nothing with Rare when they could have used Rare to really be a pillar. Like, what has Bethesda done? Like, now it's their time to showcase with Starfield and stuff like that. Um, and I understand that these things take time, but the problem is that since 2014, Xbox has always been preaching next year is the year. Next
That,
year, that's the
it's
year.
true.
Next, let me tell you, 2017 is going to be great, and in 2017, I'm going to tell you that 2018 is going to be great. And they've been doing this for nearly a decade now, and I think at some point in time, people have to get tired of it. The people are saying, Xbox is going to have a big chance to one up Sony with their Xbox presentation, since the Sony showcase was so bad. And I don't know if that's going to be the case. I don't, because a game like Perfect Dark, a game like Avowed, a game like Fable, those aren't anytime soon. Those are not anytime soon. People think, oh, maybe one of them. No, none of those are coming out this year. Hellblade 2 isn't even coming out this year. Like, are they finally going to show us the games that they showed us a couple of years ago? Or are they going to show us new games to go alongside with these other games? And it's like, you keep showing me stuff, but I don't have any finished products. And the finished products that I have are games like Redfall. Like,
That wasn't a, let's not say finished products. That wasn't finished. Come on, man. Don't do that.
well, it wasn't finished, but it had to be
It
finished
was
because
finished
of
enough.
because of Microsoft's self-imposed
for 70.
release window.
$70.
It was because of Microsoft, but it doesn't matter because you throw it on Game Pass. You're not planning on selling copies of it anyways. You throw it on Game Pass. You fix it as you go along. Hey, it's a Game Pass game. Nobody bought that game for $70 on the Xbox. Hell no. They just played it on Game Pass. That's how the Game Pass stigma exists.
Gotcha. Well, you brought it up, and I'd be crazy if I didn't talk about it today, because obviously it's been the big news since like 5 o'clock yesterday. The PlayStation Showcase. Like, need I say more?
Yeah, it showed you incompetence across every level. Over 600 days since the last showcase.
But people are saying Microsoft Activision deal made this happen. Where are you at on that weird kind of sentiment?
How? What does the Microsoft Activision deal have to do with Sony first party studios? Nothing. Sony has tons of exclusive game rights and exclusive marketing rights for games that are not Activision Blizzard games. It has nothing to do with that. It's complete different situations. This was not a showcase about Sony responding to Microsoft Activision acquisitions. This was a showcase for Sony to show off PlayStation 5 and PlayStation VR 2 stuff. And they shit the bed completely. You showed me game names. You showed me CGI trailers. Showed me Cat's Quest. What are your first party studios doing? Nothing? Because if I'm basing it on that presentation, they're doing nothing. Your biggest game is Spider-Man 2. You couldn't give me a concrete release date for it? Oh, it's fall. It's almost June, for Christ's sakes. We're almost in summer.
Yeah, we knew it was fall last year.
Yeah.
Or we had a good idea. Yeah, we knew it was later in the year of this year, last year. And then, splashings happened early this year where it was like, oh, well, we're thinking about September because of the whole actor or whatever thing.
Right.
And then, yeah. So we're thinking fall this whole time. So they came out and told us that we're going to get what we know about already in 80% of the showcase. And some of the other surprises were multi-plat surprises. And it felt very much like a summer game showcase instead of a
then you have
PlayStation
event. You have these PlayStation weirdos. They're like, oh, they're just saving stuff for the summer games. No, they're fuck. Do you know anything? if anyone thinks,
I was going to bring that up, but you did. Go ahead.
If anyone thinks that Sony was saving stuff for that, you're a fucking moron, and you should not have an opinion. Because that's not. Companies like to do things on their own time. Jeff has to go out of his way to get these exclusive things, or hope and pray that nothing else is happening around the time that he does one of his things. You know what I'm saying? There's no competition for him.
So since you brought that up, I had somebody say yesterday that they didn't show factions because Jeff said factions would be back at the summer showcase at the end of the show last year, which he did say that. Do you put any thought into that being reality? Because I feel like if Sony had something and they were confident about it, they would have showed it there and said, "Yes, Jeff, you can show it too, but we showing our shit."
Yeah, no, that's I put no stock into that whatsoever. Because why would you want to be a statistic in a generalized show when you can have all eyes on you and no one's thinking about the competition? Nobody's thinking about Xbox. Nobody's thinking about Nintendo. Nobody's thinking about Doritos during a PlayStation presentation. They're thinking about PlayStation. You don't save your big guns for a throwaway summer showcase from a overhyping Jeff Keighley. And I've had, I've talked to Jeff before. Because I've always been, I always hate the fucking Game Awards most of the time. And I'm like, oh, they suck ass, this, that, and the other. He was holding the spaces once. I called in. I don't care. I was like, fuck. He picked me. It was like, I seen you've been kind of critical of me. And I'm like, yes, I have been. Like, I'm always going to do stuff like that because, I don't care. Like, you when you overpromise and underdeliver constantly, that becomes a problem. And then, people are like, oh, you should just have your expectations lowered. It's like, no, the person who's showing
that's the wrong attitude in gaming. You don't do that in gaming. You always have them through the roof, and then they get simmered down
because
once you see it.
Because these companies or the host of these shows are the ones hyping you up. They're the ones that are bringing all this buzz. They're the ones that are bringing all this this sort of, this sort of hype to these shows to where you start to think things. I don't think Factions is going to be shown. Factions, they finished The Last of Us 2. When they finished The Last of Us 2, that's when they started working on Factions. Factions was never going to be included in that game. Ever. Because we're at these larger development cycles.
And you think they didn't say anything about that for a good reason? That they were
because the game's nowhere for Factions?
Yeah, like why didn't they just say we're coming out with this and Factions like it's going to be its own game?
Factions is nowhere near done. It's nowhere near done. It's nowhere near ready to show. That's what I've heard.
All right, well,
because you got here's why. Sony showed off a couple of their live service games, and every single one was a CGI trailer. And they didn't show off Twisted Metal, and they didn't show off fucking
Horizon
Factions or Horizon. Oh. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
If they wanted to save a games as a service games for that, they would have done the Jade Raymond game because you have Jade Raymond's name attached to it. People would have shit all over it when they saw the horrible, stupid payday concept with a bunch of college weirdo kids of a modern era as the lead characters with it. But at least it would have been a bit easier to swallow. But no, if you're choosing that game over Factions to show on your own show, like you're crazy. You're crazy because Factions, I'm telling you, I don't think it's anywhere near done. And that's what I've heard in different circles.
Insane. And I mean, I got to bring it up now. We touched on it just lightly earlier, and as I said, I'm gonna try to respect your time. So we're gonna try to get out of here in the next 20 minutes. We're gonna try, but it's been a fantastic conversation, brother. Absolutely. And by the way, you guys watching, appreciate y'all. If you're new, hit that subscribe button. Trying to move on up to the east side. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, and also hit that like button, definitely. But brother RGT, so what in the hell is going on with Square Enix, and why do they keep disappointing everybody? It seems like it almost seems like they're going out of their way to make sure that they get you to try to like something that you just told them that you don't like. Or better yet, they went from being the people that got copied to the people copying. Remember how many games were like Final Fantasy back in the early PlayStation days and stuff like that? And even if you want to go back to Super Nintendo, like there's a ton of people trying to be like Squaresoft back then. Nowadays, Square Enix, they're making games that you're like, I've seen this before somewhere else, where it's like a knockoff. Go on ahead and spit your bars, bro.
I feel it's a combination of things. You have to make certain games that will make you money. The rise of free-to-play games, everyone tries to get in on that. The rise of the multiplayer-centric game with a low cost of entry or no cost of entry, and then you nickel and dime on the different colorways and stuff like that. It works for a couple of games out there. And these companies see those games and they think our game is going to be that. And it never is. It never is. We've seen so many games come and go in the past 2 years that were these live service games that just fail. Because the reason why Fortnite was successful wasn't because it was a live service game. It's because it was different. It was different than everything else that was on the marketplace. It had a different look. It had a different mechanic. It had a different style to it.
It was different with purpose. Exactly. It was not different to be similar or to fit. It wasn't trying to fit in. It was trying to, in fact, break a wall down.
Exactly. And they did. Everyone who disses Fortnite and stuff like that, I'm like, you're crazy, dude. Like, it might not be your cup of tea, but
it ain't mine. But I gotta respect the numbers.
You gotta respect it. You gotta respect it. Square Enix is at a point where it's like they want to have these huge development costs. They want to have these huge budgets with their games. And they have to have these games. So it's a problem across the board because when you release a game in the Final Fantasy series. It has to hit a certain number. If it doesn't hit that number, it's considered a failure. And you see that with a lot of third-party companies. Their expectations are rising. You used to have these games where if you sold, 500,000 copies, you dancing in the streets. Holy shit. We sold 500,000 copies. Great. Nowadays, you sell 500,000 copies, and that could be a AAA game. You sold 500,000 copies, you were happy. Nowadays, you sell 500,000 copies, you're looking for a job for a AAA game. So because of the rising budgets, the rising costs of developing games and the scopes getting bigger and bigger and all that sort of stuff, you have to sell more products. So you have to have these supplemental things that Square Enix tries to do, where they'll publish a game that they have no business publishing. They'll release a game under their brand that they have no business releasing. That's not the standard. It's not the status quo. It's not. It's it's something a little bit weird or off the wall, but still you have to factor in, what was the development cost of it? How much is it costing? I say all that to say a lot of these companies are relying on their older IPs to keep them afloat.
Yes. That's why we're in Remake City right now.
Exactly. They're relying, Square Enix is relying on Final Fantasy right now.
That nostalgia, we talked about it. They stretching it.
They stretch it.
They're trying to wrap it around the world right now, bro.
Capcom's the same way. Your Resident Evil, your Monster Hunter. Granted, Monster Hunter didn't get, Monster Hunter World kind of made Monster Hunter a worldwide property, but Monster Hunter was always popular in Japan back when Japan sales were actually good. So that allowed them to bring games to the West, and they didn't have to sell a billion copies in order to do it. Now everyone loves Monster Hunter, but you got Monster Hunter, you have Resident Evil. These companies rely on this nostalgia for their good games because that was a time frame where creativity was encouraged. That was a time frame where everything comes back full circle. Competition. You had all these people. Think of a company like Tecmo. When you think of Tecmo, you probably think of Tecmo Bowl and stuff like that. Tecmo had every style of game in the world because they weren't satisfied with just sports. Because they started to lose the sports market. They released an RPG.
A lot of developers back then were like that too. Acclaim, come on, bruh.
Yeah. Developers, it was cutthroat, but you could take a little bit more of a chance. Your catalog wasn't just one style of game. Konami had a whole sports division. You had a Konami basketball game, NBA in the Zone, right next to Konami's Metal Gear Solid. And it was just
Mortal Kombat right next to NBA Jam.
Yeah, with Mortal Kombat characters in the arcade version of NBA Jam. You had these more diverse portfolios.
I forgot about that. Let's go.
Yeah. And then as the industry got bigger and bigger and budgets got bigger and bigger, you started to see less and less. And now it's just, for every game that's a Splatoon, there's a Babylon's Fall or a Godfall. You know what I'm saying? Like, or a Redfall. What is with games with the word fall in the name? Godfall, Redfall, and Babylon's Fall.
Yeah. Don't put fall in your game. Don't put fall
in your game.
Don't do it.
Fall Guys. Fall Guys had some success.
Yeah, Fall Guys was interesting, and it was easy to pick up and play. And in just playing it, you didn't take it too serious. You know what I mean? You played it to be literally a goofy asshole for a little while. You didn't play it the same way you played Redfall or Godfall or Babylon's Fall, any of the Fall games. Right. Because you were trying to grind. You were actually trying to do something. You were trying to accomplish something. Fall Guys, you just die and you start all over again.
Yeah, start a new game.
Whatever. All right. Well, we got into that enough. One last thing I wanted to bring up from the PlayStation show, or actually two, but I'm going to put them together. From the PlayStation Showcase was, bro, what the hell was up with the movie trailer? Not even no game. There wasn't even like a DLC to
Oh,
Gran
yeah.
Turismo.
No,
Like it was
Gran
just like, here's a movie. Bye.
It was the placement of it too, because you're supposed to be. That was right before Spider-Man, right before your last game. You show a movie trailer. It just shows you the lack of direction with a lot of these companies. It's not about games necessarily. It's about what makes you money. And I understand that it's a business, but at some point in time, you got to realize what brought you to the game. You know, you don't want to let down the people that put you in a position of where you are. And by doing stuff like that, it just comes across as disrespectful and not knowing your fan base, really.
Yeah, and the weird placement that they put VR in the small selection of games that they actually brought. They had a couple cool titles, but a lot of them were, I mean, you could play them anywhere.
Yeah, and they all looked very similar. All, like, you look at PlayStation VR 2 is expensive as hell. And I bought it.
You think so?
It's expensive?
Yeah, I mean, some people say, you know, like if you already have the console, it ain't that bad because it's. I mean, if you think of
you
meta,
have to have the console.
Sure,
that's the thing. So you have to put it in the console.
You're thinking of the whole package. I got you.
Hold on a second. I gotta blow my nose real quick.
Oh no, you're good.
Okay, so yeah, you have to consider it the whole package. I feel. And yeah, I thought Horizon sucked on it.
Really?
Like,
the Call of the Mountain?
Yes.
I never got to play it.
You just go like this the whole time.
You just climbing.
Star Wars was better. Gran Turismo 7 was way better. But yeah, as a PSVR VR2 owner, I was like, okay, maybe they're gonna finally show me something that justifies my purchase. They didn't show me a damn thing that justifies my purchase. I'm like, come on, dude. Like, this is crazy.
And then last but not least, I was like, bro, I said this back in April. I was like, they gotta be tone deaf if they drop something like this.
Oh, the Project Q?
The Project Q and the earbuds. Were you happy at all to see either one of those products?
God, no. No. I talked about that today in a video, the Project Q. Whoever came up with that and was like, this is the move, they need to be fired.
Multiple people need to be, because it's just like not just one person said this is great. A whole group had to be like, let's see where you're going with this. That's a pretty great idea.
Literally do what this device is going to do for $5. You buy a clip for your controller and your phone or your tablet off Amazon for $5, and it's the exact same thing. Why in God's name do I need a dedicated
first party
long, gross-looking device with the 8-inch screen on it that I'm sure is a proprietary screen? And it has to. If it was $100, okay. $150, no. It's going to be more than that, though. It's going to be more than that. And I don't understand who this is for. Because you need to be on Wi-Fi. The game needs to be downloaded on your PlayStation 5. But
here's something I got mixed up. Can you be like, let's say at McDonald's and play it?
I think so. Pending that McDonald's has good Wi-Fi.
Right.
I think so. I'm not 100% sure. But at that rate, why would I don't understand. Like, get a Switch, get a Steam Deck. Like, get something that's designed for that, to where I don't need Wi-Fi, because Wi-Fi doesn't exist all over the place, especially if you live in a rural area. Like, the world is not just a big Wi-Fi hub.
You ain't taking that camping.
Yeah, like I don't understand it. Anything above $150, they are on crack cocaine. Absolute crack cocaine.
I mean, and then just to put the cherry on top, it takes over your console like any other remote play does. Remote play, I've used it myself like maybe 10 times. And I think 2 of those times were to play games. 2 of those times. The other 8 times was because it's not super simple to turn off a PS5.
Right.
It's not like the Xbox where you just hold the Xbox button, hit up and A. It's not that.
I don't see the point of it. I don't see the point. That's stupid. Nobody wanted to see that. They wanted to see video games. And you're showing me this god awful monstrosity that when you come out with a product, the product is to solve a problem. Okay. And you can say, well, what problem did the PlayStation 5 solve? It solved the problem of the PlayStation 4, so on and so forth. Okay. I can't do this on a PlayStation 4. I need a better system. That's why a PlayStation 5 comes out. That's why you get new systems. Because if you didn't do that, we would still be playing NES games. This does not solve a problem that exists because remote play exists. And people who want to use remote play are already using remote play. This is not going to make people want to use remote play because 90% of the people are probably going to be using this at home. And if they are, they're already using remote play with another device. Like everyone else is. No, I don't understand who
there's a backbone that exists already that literally PlayStation, helped roll out before talking about this. So it was nuts. I actually seen this hilarious picture that somebody put on Twitter, of course, because that's where all the funny pictures end up. They put they took two PS5 controllers, put them kind of next to each other, and put a switch screen right in between it.
I saw that.
And I looked at it for like a half a second, and I was and I read the text, and it said I got the chance to try out this Q Lite or whatever.
Tom Warren, I think it was Tom Warren that made that.
I don't know who did it, but I had to take a second look, and I was like, wait, that's not the like I was fooled for like a half a second. I was like, that looks exactly like it, just because that thing is so damn ugly. Nope. It's a weird looking thing. But continuing on, I just got a few more questions before we close this out.
Yeah.
First of all, I gotta wonder, brother, what the heck got you even? I mean, you said Nintendo, sure, but what actually got you involved in content creating? How did you end up where you are today? Let's talk about the days real quick where you ain't have no followers, where you were looking for subscribers and everything, where you were one of the only few people in your chat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So like I said, it got started with writing because I wanted free video games, and I would get free video games from that website. I ended up going to another website that was just Nintendo focused after that shut down, and I noticed they had a YouTube channel and it had like 1,000 subscribers. I was like, whoa,
big time back then, right?
Yeah, I was like, that's a lot of people. So I went to the site owner. I was like, hey, I'm going to make videos. And he was like, do you know how to make videos? And I was like, no, but I'll figure it out. It's like, okay. I bought a 480p webcam and I had a lamp and Windows Movie Maker. That's what I made videos with. Right around that time, they hired a guy. The website was based out of Canada. They hired this Canadian fucker named Jason. He comes in. He's filming at ANC games in Toronto. He's got lapel mics. He's got box lights. He has a $3,000 camera filming him. And we're both making videos on this channel. And I'm like, this motherfucking piece of shit is one-upping me. And it pissed me off to no degree. Because the video he was making, at that time, he was doing a series. He was transforming a series of written articles that we had written before he had joined us into a video format. I hated him for that. So I had a stripper friend of mine come on and be in a video and stuff like that. I would have different girls come over and stuff like that. Like, I was doing whatever I could to get him in views. And then as time went on, that YouTube channel ended up building up, but we became good friends throughout the years.
Interesting how that happens.
Yeah. But I kind of wanted to start doing my own thing. Like my own, like talk about stuff beyond just Nintendo. And you couldn't really do that on that channel. So he was like, well, just make a side channel. Everyone else has a side channel. And I was like, okay. And so I made my own side channel. And then, the side channel started taking off and, this, that, and the other. And then it got to a point where like I was making more because I was getting paid monthly from the website, but I was making more on my YouTube channel than I was getting paid from them. And I was kind of like, I'm probably going to have to move on. And they were like, no, that's fine. Do what you got to do. And I was like,
It
okay.
was costing you money, literally.
Yeah. And then, that started making more than my day job was. And I was like, well, fuck. I was going to try it out. I saved money. I saved a bunch of money for like 6 months. Didn't fucking do anything. Just would work and make videos. And then I took the plunge and went full time. And yeah, it's a good decision.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it worked out for you pretty well, brother. There's a new little thing. I don't even know why I call it new now, because I've been doing it since almost the beginning of the year. And I've only been having this. I've only had this channel for about a little under 2 years. I always ask people if they're comfortable enough to shout out the people that helped them get to where they are today. So if you're comfortable with that, go on ahead. Take off.
A lot of these people I haven't talked to in a very long time. But I feel like we're still cool. Rerez came on my channel for a live stream. And I literally was just using him for his name. And he was like, what are we talking about on this live stream? And I was like, I have no idea. And then I hit go live and his face was just like, I was like, all right, we're live, motherfucker. Me that I would hate my name and I need to shorten it. And I was like, fuck off. And then like a year and a half into it, I was like, yeah, I hate this name. I need to shorten it. So Gilly the Kid. JKB, who doesn't really, he's Review Tech USA's editor. JKB was the first person to sit me down and be like, not really sit me down like in a physical sense, but he was the first person to tell me like, don't fucking listen to people. Just do what you want to do. Don't second guess yourself. And do what's making you money and what's making you grow. Who gives a fuck about what other people said? And I always felt like, this isn't a knock against him, but I always felt like he never took that own advice. Because once I started taking
it's easy to give other people advice instead of take your own. Hey, that's real.
And so like that was huge for me. Woodhawker from Beat 'em Ups. Him and I we're good friends, and it turned into like a very healthy competition between the two of us, and we would bounce ideas off of each other. Game Sack, the Game Chasers, people like that. 8-Bit Eric gave our old channel a shout out on the website I used to work for, Nintendo Enthusiasts, for just giving me, opportunities and stuff like that. I go on forever, but those are the ones that I specifically remember, like instances of them actually helping me out when they had really no business to help me out. Like it wasn't something that they were going to benefit from. And that's something I always remember. They weren't going to, they're not going to benefit from being on my channel. They're not going to benefit from giving me advice. It does nothing for them, but they just did it just to do it. So I always remember that.
Hey brother, that's how I feel about you today. I appreciate you for coming through here because
I mean, no
to be honest, I mean, you're miles way, like you're out of my sight right now. But like, there's no way that you didn't know that coming on here. I'm sure you looked at it and it was like, is this dude a piece of shit? That's what I need to check real quick. And if he's not, you just like, is he a piece of shit real quick?
Only because one time I went on a show and like, they had some sound bites that they kept doing, and I was like, "Oh man, that's not good. Like that's a little sketchy there." But yeah, no, I mean, I don't fucking care. I'll do anyone's show as long as they're not an absolute piece of shit weirdo.
Gotcha. All right, just a few more questions, and these are quick hitter questions now. So, I want to know now what game you're currently looking forward to. And it can be a few if you can't just nail down one.
AEW Fight Forever.
Let's go. Hey, THQ, come back to me.
Very excited for that. There was a new gameplay video that was like a half hour of gamelplay. It looks so good. It looks
I haven't seen it.
It's got a bunch of So, are you familiar with Orange Cassidy, the wrestler?
I'm gonna be honest. No.
Okay. Well, Orange Cassidy, his whole thing is that he's lazy, but like when he has to do something, he does it. And like he does this thing where he puts his hands in his pockets all the time. And then like it'll turn into like a bunch of moves and stuff like that. They were playing the game, and one of his taunts was to put his hands in his pocket. And then they pinned the guy that was down on the mat, and it pinned him with the hands in the pocket. And I was like, what an attention to detail. Like, that is crazy. So, yeah.
That's cool.
AEW Fight Forever, Starfield, Spider-Man 2. Yeah, I'll go with those three.
Okay. Quick. All right. Now, what's your favorite studio and what game best represents that studio?
My current favorite studio or like my favorite studio of all time? Because that would be two different things.
Let's go with both. I want to hear it.
I mean, the current favorite studio, it has to be Nintendo, because whether you like the games or not, they're still releasing high quality games. The wait times are much less than the other platforms, and I feel like they've done a good job of being consistent. There's tons of things I don't like about them. There's tons of things I don't agree with them. In its heyday, it has to be Konami. Like, in 90s Konami was untouchable. You had these amazing arcade games, Turtles in Time, X-Men, Simpsons. You had awesome home console games, Castlevania, Metal Gear Solid at its peak. Like, it has to be Konami.
I feel you. I feel that. I ain't mad at that decision at all. That's they had a lot of fantastic games back in the heyday. Okay, so then now, what are two dead IPs that you would revive and give AAA treatment to that are no longer around?
Virtua Fighter, because I feel like the fighting game scene
over Dead or Alive. Oh,
yes, yeah. Because
even over Power Stone.
I'm really Power Stone only had 2 games.
It did.
Virtua Fighter at least had 5.
Okay.
I would go with Virtua Fighter, and I would go. I mean, I would have said Metal Gear, but with Metal Gear Solid 3 or Delta, as they're calling it, can't really pick that one. Let's see here. Knights. I want a AAA Knights game. I love Knights on the Sega Saturn. I love Knights on the Wii. I don't know.
You're talking about Knights in the Dreams?
Yes, sir. Yes,
okay.
Sir. Give me my that's what I thought Balan Wonderworld was going to be. It had Yuji Naka at the helm. I'm like, holy shit. It's pretty much Knights, just without Knights. And then I played the game and I was like, fuck you, Yuji Naka. You piece of shit. You son of a bitch. You ruined my life.
Got him. All right. Final 2 questions now. And I'm going to scrunch them together, but you're going to answer them separately. I want to know what frustrates you in gaming in general. So this could be anything that has to do with gaming, whether it is fan bases, development, heads of, the house or whatever. And then on the flip side, a dream come true in gaming. So go on ahead and hit the shitty one first.
Okay, the shitty one's an easy one for me. Fan bases. And I'm not talking about general fans. I'm not talking about 95% of people. I'm talking about these fucking weirdos who wake up in the morning and all they think about is their one platform or retro gaming, because that's what it is. There's Nintendo weirdos, there's PlayStation weirdos, there's Xbox weirdos, PC Master Race weirdos, and retro gaming weirdos. And they are the most ridiculous people. When you constantly have to talk about how great something is to try and convince other people, it's not that great, because things should be able to stand on their own. When you're constantly trying to tell people, oh, you emulate, you need to play on a CRT with AV cables, shut the fuck up. When these people who are constantly making console war fanboy videos, so shut up. Like, they're funny to watch. I watch them. But these people literally engage in these wars. They spend time, like, these grown-ass people spending time away from their loved ones and their friends and their family to fight in these console wars on Twitter, on YouTube. And it's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And what was the second half?
You don't like 10-hour spaces and
oh my god, no. No. And like,
I mean,
because like my thing is, I'm going through and I'm making mental notes of the people who loved the PlayStation showcase, and it's like, okay, you are on a list now because you are fraudulent. Because the real people, like Jack Move Johnny and Broken Games HD,
hey, Jack Move was not having it.
They hated it, and I was like, all right, this is why I'm friends with these people.
Jay Barry was not having it. He Jay Barry, bro. Like I had him on this show actually a while back, and I've never seen him so disappointed on Twitter. In the sense of gaming. In the sense of gaming. I mean, people have real shit that happens, and sometimes they talk about it. But in the sense of gaming, I had never seen him so just feeling like PlayStation was out of touch with what he wants.
Right.
And I was just like, man, like as an Xbox fan, some would think us Xbox, and I know there was a lot of them out there that were rejoicing this terrible showcase. I had half a mind to be like, you know what? But at the same time, I look over and I see that I have a PS5. So I took a L too.
Yeah.
So it's just like,
I mean, even if you didn't, like, you should want PlayStation to come out guns blazing because that gives Xbox incentive to up their game.
I had anticipated, and shout out to this dude named Hard Days Mike. He said, when I seen Jim Ryan, I thought it was game on. I thought it was time to turn up. I seen, and I felt the exact same way. I seen him, and I was like, last time I remember hearing anything from him, it was ABK deal stuff. So I think when he comes to the stage, he ain't gonna be messing around. He led us into the showcase. We were like, okay, with the first couple things. And then by the time he came back, everybody's exhausted, frustrated. He shows us a streaming device, some headphones, and then finally shows us the one thing that made the showcase even worth coming to the entire time. So it was just like, what the absolute hell. But like I said, as a primary Xbox fan that has a PlayStation and has a Switch and has all these retro consoles and shit like that I pay probably way too much for, seeing that, I was like, man, Xbox, you got to lay up. But at the same time, I'm just like, now I already haven't really turned my PlayStation on that much.
Right.
That showcase told me that I'm not going to be turning it on much more.
Right. Exactly.
Unfortunate, but it's funny how people always forget the second half of the question because they get amped on the first half. So the second half of the question was, what would be a dream come true to you within gaming in general?
I don't know. That's actually tough because, like, I feel like the biggest dream was always, being able to do something gaming related, like as a job, and like be able to make money on it, and have a decent life. And like I feel like I've done that. I don't know. Like the thing about gaming is like I just take it as it comes. Like I think we're in a dark timeline for video games. I think things are gonna, with the all digital stuff, competition, the rising costs, kind of like we've been talking about throughout. Like I feel like times are gonna get really dark for video games, and like development cycles are going to be longer, and games are going to be less and less. Like there's going to be less studios and less this, that, or the other. So I don't know. Like I feel like I've been able to experience like the highs and the lows of the industry, and I don't really know how much higher it can get, at least from a creativity standpoint and a competition standpoint. But yeah, I don't know. It's a hard question.
Okay, so no answer.
I just don't know. I mean, okay, Sega to come back. And
Oh Lord, then you give me a crazy ass answer like
that's the easiest thing to
do. Which I think we'd love to see, but it's just like, what are you gonna come out with a console and then tell me to wait 10 years for a game too? Like, are we doing that over here too? like what's going on? So, but brother RGT, I really appreciate you coming through here. We ran a little bit more on the time side than I had anticipated, but I mean, the conversation was fire. I hope everybody that watched this show today had a good time. Those of you that stuck around, or those of you that just stopped in for a little bit, I really appreciate you guys too. Make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed what you've seen, because I definitely have some more interviews coming up. Next week is going to be Retro Game Brew. The week after that is going to be J-Dub. Then I got Sean K the King and Hip Hop Gamer coming through in the following month. So make sure you guys definitely come through. I'd love to see you back, whether you're in the chat or just kicking back watching. RGT, brother, go on ahead and let everybody know where they can find you.
You can find me at RGT85 on all forms of social media, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I'll be honest, I don't run the TikTok page. My one employee does, who edits some videos for me from time to time. But yeah, thanks for having me on. It was a good time, and we'll have to catch up again soon because a lot of fun stuff to talk about.
Yeah, man, absolutely fantastic. Thanks again, everybody, for watching. And the last thing I'm going to ask you, RGT, before we get up out of here, is to describe gaming in just 3 words.
It's the best.
Simple, easy, and I love it. Thank you guys so much for coming out. I will see you guys tomorrow for an episode of Bullsitting with me, my boy Loke, Matt Likes Games, Cozy Beluga, and then our special guest, Dirt Griggity. I'll see y'all later. Thank you so much for watching. Peace out.